So it's now Chief Eric Smith.
Yes, it is.
How does that feel? How does that sound?
It feels good. Nervous a little bit, but I mean, it feels good. I've been in this agency for a long time, so it's, you get a little nervous because of the position it is, but I've just moved up in the agency. It's different from a chief that came from outside the agency. So I have the bond here, have the working relationship with our officers and the command staff here, so I think it's a good transition and it feels good.
You're not from here, but you've lived here a long time. How did you end up in Orlando?
My dad was a Marine, and basically we moved every 3 years to different Marine Corps bases. Other Marine Corps bases all over the U.S., including Japan and Hawaii. So from Hawaii all the way over to Virginia. I ended up graduating high school from Camp Lejeune Marine Corps Base in North Carolina. I got brought back down here by UCF to play football down here at the University of Central Florida, which was a good experience. Learned I was not the best football player and had a lot of injuries, so I was looking for something. I defined a major that really worked for me. I started with radio and TV. Realized that's a pretty competitive field. Your field's pretty competitive. So I was like, criminal justice is a better field for me and what I like to do, and just the different things that happen all the time in criminal justice. So I was really looking at police officer hard, but I was also looking at federal agencies. I interned with the Office of Customs, which now is Department of Homeland Security. Been through a lot of transitions. I interned with them, and one thing they did was they introduced me to the sheriff at the time and then the police chief at the time, Chief Holbert. And when they introduced me to them, I told myself that I need a job. Whichever one of these agencies hired me first, so I applied to the U.S. Marshals, Secret Service, Orlando Police Department, and Orange County Sheriff's Office. Orlando Police Department called me on a week, and then 3 days later, the Orange County Sheriff's Office called me. And I told myself I'm gonna go with the first job I get. Secret Service came knocking like 2 years later, but I was already happy at OPD, doing SWAT and all these other kind of things here. So I stayed, and it's probably the best decision I ever made.
So 2 job offers, 3 in a matter of weeks. You must have been pretty marketable back then.
I don't know if it was that. I think they were looking for numbers, but it worked out for me. I mean, it was, and I did a ride-along. One good thing that the U.S. Customs did for me is they gave me a couple of ride-alongs. They introduced me to chief, and I did some ride-alongs with OPD, and it was eye-opening for me because I really didn't know what officers go through. You see, Cops was big back then. Some TV shows were big back then. And to see how different it was, 1 second I'm talking to the officer I'm riding with, the next second we're driving fast, the lights are on, and then the next second he's just bailing out of the car running. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I just sit here. So it was a learning experience for me, but watching what he did, he went out there and they actually were working a foot pursuit and caught a robber. And just to stand there and watch them, how they interviewed a person, how they did it, how they got with the victims and people who actually were hurting and needed help, and how they helped them was really eye-opening for me. And I was like, this is really a profession I can do. I rode with him for an 8-hour shift back in those days, and we did like 4 or 5 different things, different kind of calls. Some were just straight helping people, and other ones were active things we were doing, taking drugs off the street, things like that. So it was just really eye-opening, and talking to that officer, really showed me that there were a lot of differences to this job and a lot of things you could accomplish and actually make a difference.
So I want to have a little fun with you for a moment. I want to show you a few pictures, and I want you to tell me, what did this kid in this picture want to be?
That kid in that picture wanted to be a U.S. Marine just like my dad, 100%. I was one of those kids that was all into my dad's job. I dressed up, I wore his helmet, I wore his hats, I did all those kind of things, and I was like, I want to be a Marine. And then as I got older, my dad was like, he's like, Marine Corps is, more mission, back in those days, infantry, mission oriented, those kind of things. He's like, what you want to do is learn a trade, go in the Navy. So he was pushing me to go in the Navy. So it just happened to be when I went to the Naval Recruiter, which was interesting, when I was in college, he gave me a business card. It was for OPD. He goes, the Navy's downsizing, we could probably give you 4 or 5 years, you're gonna have a college degree, that's fine. But this job pays similar, and you'll be able to do it for a long time and stay in Orlando. So he goes, I'm gonna give you an option here. So it was sort of like fate, where the Customs was telling me, introduced me to the chief. I did a ride along, and then this guy, the Naval Recruiter, who I didn't know, was like, here's this business card for this recruiter, and it's like OPD. I was like, interesting. And he said, at this time, they're looking for African Americans, males. And I was like, interesting. So I was like, that was sort of like fate for me, that this is the right direction I'm going into. And so it sort of changed my focus. And I'm happy I did.
So then, all that being said, what would your dad, what would he say about you being in this position?
He's very happy. It's funny, he sends me news articles or news links every day. And I'm just like, there's going to be things that come out, not basically about me, but all over the country. This officer did this officer did that. So I'm always have to talk to him, things are different in other places, things happen in other places that, and just sort of, it's just what happens in other places. I focus on what happens in Orlando. So now he's like focused on sending me stories in Orlando. Well, this could affect you or that could affect you. Look what happened at this agency right next to you, at this agency right next to you. So he's just sort of funny. And he calls me every time he sees me on the news. He's one of those people that every picture where I show up on something he likes, and I'm like, stop. It's just like, just slow down. But, a good thing is he lives about a mile from me, so we try and get together a couple times a week and do something with him. I always try to find time to either have dinner with him or do something with him, so it's good. He raised me, he put the values in me, so I need to spend that time with him and give back whenever I can. So I always try to make the time to spend with him.
He's proud.
Very proud. Very proud of me, very happy with me. He was like a concerned dad when I first got into policing because he was like very worried about me. But now as I moved through the ranks, he always gives me a hard time. He's like, what are you doing tonight? I go, I'm going to go ride patrol with my officers tonight. Why are you doing that? Why don't you stay home? You're in charge, you're the chief. With him, it's just all about safety, worrying about me getting hurt, which I understand that. But I'm always going to be out there with our officers. They do a great job. They're hardworking. So it's for me to be out there with them and show them I'm going to stand with them no matter what.
Talk to me about your ties to this community, because one of the things that stood out to me as I scrolled through, I think there's something like 200 pictures they sent me of your time here on the force. You attend community meetings, you're out there, you're involved in boards and organizations. How important has that been for you, not just in your supervisory roles, but as an officer in this department?
It's very important. I mean, I attended 3 homeowners and neighborhood watch meetings last night. And the important thing is there to be in touch. I mean, I can get the information coming to me from people who work for me, other stuff, but it's all secondhand. I want to hear from our community, and like one of the meetings I attended in Lake Eola South last night was more about, issues that they're having, not seeing the police as much. They would love to see the police more. Some of the homeless issues they're encountering over in that area. So of course, I want to hear from them. I want to tell them, and I'm a straight shooter. I tell people straight. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. But our presence, we can work on that. We can change that, and that's the biggest thing for us. Us being there, some things you may be think that we can do, we can't do, but I'm going to tell you exactly how we can. And I think it's very important for me to be out there in the community, to meet people, to see people, hear all their values. I think the boards have been helpful, being on boards, like United Against Poverty and YMCA. Those kind of boards have been very helpful for me because I'm seeing all walks of life. People at their lowest, people at their best. Scholarships out there that need to be put out for students to attend college and things of that nature. So it gives me just a good eye shot of what's going on in our community and keeps me grounded and in touch with what's going on.
Sound like a person who doesn't sleep a lot.
Yeah, I need to work on that. I try. I get 5 or 6 hours at the most. It's just something my body wakes up, go do something.
What separates you from previous chiefs?
I don't really know what it is. I think I took a lot from all the different chiefs, from Rooney to Mina to Rolone. I take a little bit from all of them, and I try and just take whatever their best qualities are, because we all have flaws in life, I take whatever their best qualities are and put that in me, and then I add my touch to it. And I think my touch is I'm not really political. You're not going to see me on the camera just to see me on the camera. Not saying any of them do that, but I mean, our positions are different. My goals are different. My goal is to run the best agency I can for our community and our officers. That's my goal. My goal isn't what am I going to do 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where am I going to be? Am I going to run for office? Am I going to do all these kind of things? It's not really me. Not really anything I've even thought about. I do the best job of what I'm doing right now. And I think that's going to be the one thing that's different. That's why I ride at night to see our officers. I want to be out there with them. That's why I go to so many community meetings, because I want to get in touch with them. Because the big thing for me is the community wants to be heard, and you need to listen to them. You're not going to like everything they say. I mean, there's a lot of meetings I go to, and it's just, they're hard on what we do. They're like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. I'm still going to go back. You're not going to run me away just because you tell me you're not happy with the way we're performing. No, my job is to adapt and then come back and listen for more recommendations from you. If you think we're over-policing an area, tell me, and I'll tell you why we're there, what we're doing there, but you tell me, how can we do things better? How can we better serve you? What do you want to see? And I take it all into consideration. I bring it up with my staff and my officers and talk about, hey, they say we're doing this in this neighborhood. Why are we doing this? What are our results? Is the way we're doing it getting results? We're getting people who are doing violent crime off the street, or we're not getting results and it's just something we're trying and it's not really successful. Let's pivot a different direction. This person in the community brought up this idea. Seems reasonable to me. Can we do it? Can we not do it? Is it legal? Can we look at doing it this way? So I always want their input, and that's why I go to so many different communities. I mean, I'm from Lake Nona up to Rosemont, out to Carver Shores, Richmond Heights, downtown. I want to hear from everybody. Everybody has something to say, and I want to listen to them.
You are coming in this role, you're becoming chief at a time where you have officers who don't want to be officers anymore because of the tension across the country. And you have communities who feel like, as you said, they are over-policed. How do you combat that?
I think with the officers, I combat that by being there with them and listening to them. And that's the one thing with the protest that was big for me. My position was over patrol and high-risk commander, which means I'm over all special teams. So I could have sat in the command post. I could have just sat back and been like watched it on camera and then sat with some of our high ups at City Hall and just sat there and watched it all. No, I chose to be out there. Every day I'm out there standing in line with them. When they took rocks and bottles and my officer got his nose broke at City Hall, I'm the one who gave the order to basically make the arrest and keep our officers safe. I'm going to be out there with them. When the things are happening that are that bad, I'll be there with them. Even in this new role, I'm going to go out there and see what's going on with my own eyes. I'm not going to hear it secondhand. I'm not going to watch it on the camera. I'm going to be there with them, and that's the one thing I've done, and I think it's shown me, and that's one reason I think I'm in this seat right now. The officers, I think they believe in me. They think that I'm there for them, which I think is the reality, because I show it to them all the time. I take either a Friday or Saturday night every week, and I'm going to ride and just see what's going on with them, because I look at it this way. If I ride a Friday night, I have Saturday, Sunday to relax. If I ride a Saturday, I have Friday and Sunday to relax. And I may go to different community things that are going on, but as far as really being out there and riding, it is what it is. I make sure I try and hit different parts of the city. I go downtown, of course, because that's where we're having some issues right there. I check on all the officers down there, and there's a lot of officers down there. So I meet with those officers then, but I also ride west side, east side. I try and go to basically every in-progress call we have. So if there's a shooting, if there's a burglary going on, any kind of major crime going on, I go to there because there'll be a lot of officers there, and they need the assistance. They may need me with my unmarked car to say, hey, the guy left to go in this direction. Can we get somebody with eyes on him? I get on the radio, I do it. If somebody runs in foot pursuit, I'm still a police officer. I'll get out there and chase them. They run in front of my car and they're chasing them. I'm going to get in the chase with them. It's because I believe in a job that we do, and I'm not bigger than them. I'm just another officer just having to rise to this position.
When did you get the call? What was that like?
The call to become the chief? Mm-hmm. It was actually in City Hall. I went there, called over there for a meeting. The mayor told me, and I'm a very straightforward person.
Did you know that's why he was calling you to City Hall?
I had a good idea. I mean, I had a good idea what it was. I knew it was going one way or the other, but I assumed it would be going in my way. So I went in there, and he just basically was like, hey, we want to offer you the job. I was like, okay, thank you. And they thought that was sort of funny because most people, I guess, go in there and say, I need a week, I need, negotiate. And I was just, no, I'm good, I'll take it. I mean, I've been in the government so long working for the city of Orlando, it's just every promotion just comes and you just keep moving up. I didn't realize that was business a little bit different, and you should be like, oh, I had some time to think about it, or let me negotiate their rate of pay and all those kind of things. I just haven't been in that world, so I just didn't really know it. So, but it all worked out great, and I always go with my heart, and my heart was like, I want this job, this is why I put in for it, you're going to offer it to me, I'm going to take it. We don't need to have a discussion about it, it's what I want to do.
So you're now in it a little bit earlier than expected.
Yes.
You're having to kind of get your bearings a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. What's that been?
It's been quick, especially when it started out the way it started out with the downtown, with the shooting downtown. It was just like, boom, you're in it. And it's like, I think it was the second day or first day. So that was intense, knowing I had to come, be here. Luckily, I was riding that night that the shooting happened, so I could come in here. They're like, hey, you want to do an interview? I'll come in here and do a little quick presser for that event. But notifying everybody, you always think you're just going to have a sort of slow grace period. You're coming to work Monday, you'll start looking at signing paperwork, going through your transition, get your IDs and everything changed over to say chief and all that kind of stuff, and get your new parking spot. Not that, hey, boom, everything's going on, and it changed my whole week because they're like, oh, we got a meeting on this, meeting on that. We need to talk about these kind of things. So it sort of changed it quick and realizing that I'm the guy. Like when the 4th of July incident happened, I handled it that night, but I knew that somebody else was, basically in charge. And now this incident, I was like, ooh, you're in charge. You have to make all the decisions. You got to handle this whole thing. You got to notify everybody. So that was the interesting part for me, and it really hasn't really slowed down. But now I'm starting to get control and realize I need to slow things down and start working on the department itself and seeing what directions we're going to go in. I need to evaluate different units we have in the department. Are we successful? Are we not? Do we need to make changes? Do we not? Personnel in the right places. So all those kind of decisions that I'm looking at right now.
People are still talking about that shooting downtown. Have you all been able to make any headway on suspects, find out what happened there?
We've made headway on it. The detectives are working very hard on it. Hopefully we'll have some more for you very soon. But like all shooting investigations, they do take time. They're not something, unless you have something right there, that they solve themselves immediately. It does take time to do investigations, all the things that that you're familiar with. It takes us a little bit of time to actually get to the point where we can actually make an arrest on somebody.
Let's talk about the crime in the city, because people want to feel safe. People want to feel like this is a place where they like to live. We've heard a lot about shootings and different incidents all over the community, and in some areas crime is up here. But what I find interesting about the crime happening in Orlando right now is that a lot of it is associated with guns. How do you tackle that?
I think you have to be proactive. Violent crime is something that is really plaguing our community, and I've seen the stats go up, and it's something you have to be very proactive. You can't sit back and just respond to shootings. Oh, somebody got shot over here, okay, the officers are on the way and they'll deal with it after the fact. You have to be proactive. You have to look at the intelligence that's out there, the intelligence policing that's out there, look at where the crimes are happening, and basically who's doing those kind of crimes. It's a well-known fact that maybe 10% of the population does about 90% of the crimes, especially when it comes to violent crime. You need to focus on those people that are doing the crimes in the areas that the crimes are happening in, and be there for that, and be very proactive in that area. And that's why I'm looking at some of the different units we have and say, are they effective? Do we need to go in a different direction? Some units we had in the past, maybe they're more effective now. Look at what units to bring back, and and our personnel in the right place. And are we responding, set up as an agency to respond to those issues and respond to that violent crime before it happens? And that's the big focus for me. I have two focuses that we're going to move in that direction. What we're going to do on this agency, we're going to fight violent crime. Our main mission is to reduce violent crime, and then increase our ties with the community. So those are the two things, because they go hand in hand. We can go out there and fight crime hard, take people off the streets and do what we have to do to people who are committing those crimes. But you also have to engage the community. You can't alienate the community while you're doing it. And that's where the big thing for me was community policing has to be a huge part of that. It has to be a part of what we do, because we're doing one thing, but you also got to do the other thing. Community policing is huge. And the way I do community policing, which is a little bit different, is I go to the meetings. I want to be at the meetings. I don't care if you got 4 people. If homeowners meetings at your house, I'll show up at your house. I'll come there and listen to it. I'm going to talk to the people and find out exactly what's going on. We'll still do the big events, but when you focus all your energy on big events where hundreds of people come, you're not talking to everybody. You're not engaging everybody. You're not seeing what's really happening. A lot of those bigger meetings, somebody monopolizes it, and they may, when you get to the 10 minutes of asking questions, the same person's asking questions, same 3 or 4 people. If you're that alpha personality, you're getting your questions answered. But what about all the other people who are sitting back there who don't get a chance to be heard? And the one thing I also do when I go to community meetings, and I'm trying to make this go, all my staff, they also do it, I put a business card on the desk. I put all my business card on the desk, and the one thing different with that business card, it has my cell phone number on it. And I tell people, call me anytime. I get phone calls from people saying, there's 2 police cars on my street. Why? At 4 in the morning. It is what it is. I will call the lieutenant who's working right now, and I will find out, and I'll call you back. The good thing about me, I can fall back asleep. I've been doing this for so long. I think I've been on call for probably the last 27 of my 28 years I've been on call. So my body's just geared where I just fall back asleep. I get the calls in the middle of the night from being on call for SWAT, now being a high resistance commander where I was before I moved up to here. So every special team, every lieutenant was calling me every night and say, hey, we have got this incident. We need to roll somebody out for this. We need to handle this. So I was getting woken up for all those calls. So if somebody from the community calls me and asks me if why there are 2 police cars parked on the street, I have no problem with that. I'm going to answer your question, find out the best answer I can, and help you.
I hear you saying that you're going to be engaged in the community, but how do you get your officers to be more engaged?
Lead from the front. I think the one thing I've learned in this job, and I see it all the time, is there'll be officers who want to do basically what they see their command structure do. They see me out there going to meetings. They see me out there going to calls. They see me stop and see 5 kids in a park and just stop and talk to them, throw a ball with them for a few minutes. That's what I want them to do, but I want it to be genuine. We've seen a lot of things where people, it's staged for social media, where it's staged for. That's not reality. And if I sit there and said, okay, every cop every day is going to stop 3 people and talk to them in a community-based atmosphere, what does that do? You don't get the best result. You don't get the best result from that person. I'm I want to make it where it just trickles down. Everybody sees us doing it. It trickles down to our officers at every level, and they see us doing it, and they want to do it. And that's one thing I want to do is get officers here who want to do those engagements. Maybe you've gone to 2 calls in a neighborhood, and you're done with the call. Now you're driving out of the neighborhood, but you sit there and you see 4 people sitting on their porch. Why not stop and say, hey, how you doing? Anything I can do for you? They may be like, oh, no, we're good. Have a nice day. They may say something else to you. But I mean, it's just, but you may make their day. They may have, yeah, we've been having this little problem in our neighborhood. Cars parked, illegally in front of our house. Can you help us with that? That goes a long way to make people feel like, hey, they care. They care about what's going on in our lives, and they're actually stopping to say hello to us. And it doesn't take, what do they lose, 2 minutes? To do something like that, just to engage somebody in conversation. And the same thing with kids playing in the park. I think our youth are major, the direction they go in, the kids. Are they gonna go one direction or another? That contact they have with their officer may change their life. My big thing was, I was in all the units I've been in this department, very proactive units, from SWAT to various drug units, working in K-9, very proactive units. But the one unit that changed me the most was a Paramore bike unit. And the Paramore bike unit is basically a unit that rides in a Paramore area. We still have them today. And their focus is community-oriented policing, but also they do violent crime and drugs. Because they're on bikes, they can pretty much get around there and work those different kind of crimes. Well, now Sheriff John Mina, he was my sergeant, and I was in the Paramore bike unit. And he goes, hey, 2 of you guys are going to do this Cub Scout troop. Create a Cub Scouts troop up here at the County Hand Center, run by our Family Parks and Rec Center. And so we started a Cub Scout troop. All the little kids came, it was great. And I got assigned to one of the Cub Scouts. And we were doing the Pinewood Derby, where you make the little race car and they paint it and they cut it and they do all that kind of stuff, then we race them. To see his eyes light up while me and him just basically worked on that car and cut the car down and sanded the car and painted the car was amazing to me. He was just so happy and so proud of what we were doing together. He just loved every minute that we had to do it, and he loved the race, jumping up and down, just having a great time. And that really opened my eyes to actually that you're making a difference in the community. That unit, yeah, we were structured there to do a certain role, but just to help him was huge. And to see his eyes light up, that really changed me to really focus on the kids, because I think that changed his life, and I think it helped him. And he had that figure in his life that was somebody that he saw every week. We sat and we talked, we had fun, and it was just really great for him. And I just liked that feeling it gave me, and that really changed my focus a lot. And that's where we started getting into the community meetings and the community outreach, and that's where it started really changing for me, because I saw what it really does for people.
So it's not just having these units in the neighborhoods, it's the units engaging with the people in the neighborhood.
Yes, that's the important part. I could have 300 officers in an area, and if they're not engaged with the community, what does that do? It's not successful for us.
The last thing I want to get into with you here is the staffing. And I think I heard you say a while ago, it doesn't do me any good to have all these officers on the street if they're not, they can arrest all these people, but what are they doing to relate to people? Do you have enough officers authorized strength right now?
We could always use more, of course. I mean, any chief's going to tell you that. We could always use more. We do the best with what we have. And I think that we do have some vacancies that we're working on filling right now. There are some people that did leave the field and went to other areas, and and then we also have a good retirement program. So basically, when officers hit 20 years, most of them are going to do a second career. So that's one thing that's hard for me. So retention's hard, and recruitment you have to catch up. When you have such a big group of people that can just basically leave, right when they get 20, they start walking out of the building. And it takes about 6 months to hire, about 6 months to train an officer. It's a long process. So it's something that we have to really focus on and get ahead of. And recruiting's huge. Retention's also huge. And I think retention is big because some officers, if they're happy, they'll stay longer. They may be like, go to that next step for us, which is the 25 years, and then of course the 28 years. And that's my goal, to make it where that OPD is an abiding place. We have just a great department. They want to come to work. They're happy to come to work. And part of that is having staffing numbers where you want to go on vacation, you get a day off. If I'm always telling you, well, we're short, you can't get a day off, you can't do this, you can't do that, it becomes hard. And people start looking around. They get unhappy with the agency, and they're like, I just want to get a weekend off, and I can't even get that. So it's got to be structured in a way to make people want to stay. They have to have a good working environment where they feel happy to come to work. People will actually care about them. I think that's very important. So I think those are the things that help with retention and recruitment. You have to get out there. You have to get out there and find people who want to come to OPD. You got to show the great things that we do. maybe our great medical, our great benefits. We're still one of the leaders in this area as far as pay. Because I mean, when I talk to young kids, that's the one thing I notice they focus on. They're like, "What's the pay?" I could talk about retirements. I could talk about the medical plans and all this kind of stuff. They cut me off. They're like, "How much you paying?" Okay, what's this guy over here paying? And it's just interesting how, and I was the same way when I was younger. When you're younger, just starting out, that's what it's about. It's about the money. So it's just one of those kind of things where you got to make sure you stay competitive, and that's what we're trying to do here: is stay competitive, and make it where it's an inviting place for new people to come to, but also a place where I can retain the officers I currently have.
I want to get to retention in just a moment, but before we go there, I want to talk to you about the pay, because OPD is a higher paying agency here in Central Florida, but just a couple of weeks ago, Tampa just announced that they're giving a significant raise to their officers. And so when you start having agencies go that direction where they're giving 18, 20% raises to officers, how do you compete with that?
I think a lot of that is just making sure that the people who negotiate these contracts, like our contracts under negotiation, they understand what the rate is for other areas around here. We have to stay competitive. And how we do that is, I know a lot of it's based on City Hall, but how we do that, we just have to stay competitive. We have to stay competitive with our area. I know Tampa is a little bit further west, but some people will go there. Some people will find it interesting, and they'll find they want to go there. But we have to stay competitive in the Central Florida region and make sure that we're one of the highest paid agencies in this area. And that's very important for us. And that's one of the things that we have to stress is trying to keep these officers at a very high level of pay where it is competitive, where they're like, maybe I got my raise was this. They may be offering this, but for another 3 or 4%, I'll stay right where I am because I'm happy, because they have a good environment. It's about the environment you work in. A lot of people stay in jobs where they may not be making as much, but the environment's nice. It's good for them. They feel good. They love the people they work with. They feel they're cared about. And I think that's the big thing you have to stress. I mean, pay is one thing, but I think once people get here, they need to realize that, the agency actually cares for them. They're having a bad time. We're there for them. We're supportive of them. And I think, people will understand that, maybe the pay is not exactly where it is should be right now, but hopefully it will get there. But they also got to understand their environment their working environment is a good place to work. And I think that's major for people.
A moment ago you talked about retention, and you had a note here about retaining officers. Is it difficult to keep officers in the climate that we're in? I mean, in some cases, you're having to force officers to work, overtime in some areas. The downtown area is a problem. Is that making it difficult to retain the officers?
I think, of course, it makes it difficult. But again, I think we've tried to put in places where we're spreading that out. So it's not like I'm going to order you to work every Friday and Saturday for months upon months. We try and spread it out and use the whole department. One thing we do is try and use the whole department. So I use my whole force, and basically, I don't care if you're a detective, if you're out at the airport, wherever you're at, you're going to rotate in and do your part. And I think that helps. So when we spread it out, I think it was maybe you work maybe 3 to 5 times a year. You're ordered to work a detail downtown. So if you spread that out through 365 days, it's not as bad as it appears. I know, but it is stressful for them, because some person maybe my shift's 8 to 4. Now I'm asking you to work from 10 to 4 in the morning for one day, which is major for you, and then it's a lot different probably from the job you're doing to go downtown and deal with what's going on, what's going on in different areas. So I think it is a little stressful for them. That's why I try and make it the best we can for them. That's why I try and make sure I always go downtown and make sure I stop with everybody and say, hey, I appreciate it, thank you for being here. Just to show that, hey, I'm here on a Friday night.
Is it the hardest place to get an officer to work?
There are some places that have had, history of crime in other areas where people are maybe more reluctant to work. But I think it's hard, but I think we've got a plan in place that really helps them, because we give them a lot of support. There's 2 bike squads down there. There's some evening shift squads down there to help them. They're officers that basically that's their work shift. So we mix it up, so it's not just people who are ordered to work stand down there. There's also squads that back them up. Bike cops who will take if they get any major kind of call. The bike cops will handle that, and to make sure they have enough backup. Like if you're standing at Central Orange and a big fight breaks out, it's not just you standing there with a big fight. I've got 20 officers who are riding to you on their bikes to come back to assist you and make sure to keep you safe. So we try and make it as safe environment as possible, and make it where they, not that they're, of course, loving to be there, but to make it where it's better for them and we can basically look out for each other.
I guess the last thing I'll ask you, and I know this is kind of maybe a hard thing to think about just a few weeks into the job, but at the end of all of this, when you're done, because no one stays in this position forever, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember about your time here as chief?
I want the community to say that, community and our officers to say that I cared about them, and basically I always looked out for them. And that's for community and for officers, that I always had their best interest in heart for both of those segments. And that's the most important thing I want them to remember about me.
Sounds easy, but that's going to be tough.
Of course it's tough. When you're trying to please different factions, and you're trying to please, like I've always heard in every training class I've always gone to, when you talk about chiefs of police, you got to keep City Hall happy, you got to keep community happy, and you got to keep the officers happy. If you lose two, you're done. So that's one thing they've always put in our minds at every command school I've gone to, from the FBI, to the DOJ. They've always put this in our minds, like, hey, that's one thing you have to do. You have basically three different areas, and you always got to keep at least two very happy.